Hi, I'm Trevor.
And I'm Kyle, and this month we were covering Irish films, Irish actors, but today we're going to take a little sidetrack over to some films about a film about Troy Duffy and two directed by Troy Duffy films. Now, Trevor, Troy Duffy is not Irish. However, he's from Boston, which has a large Irish population, from what I understand. But his movies are focused on Irish, quote unquote, Irish people.
Yeah.
The actors themselves are not.
And by films, of course, you're talking about the exactly two film productions this man has been affiliated with.
Yes. So if you're not familiar, Troy Duffy he's a Boston native, and he moved to West Hollywood. Oh, he lived in West Hollywood, and was working at a bar, an Irish bar, Jay Sloan's. I'm not sure if it's still there. And he managed to sell a script to Miramax, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And apparently Harvey Weinstein himself walked into Jay Sloan's and signed a deal with Duffy because they were so impressed by his script. Now, before we jump into this too deep, I want to just say at the top, the reason why we're doing this is because I've been fascinated with the Boondock Saints 2 movie. I don't know about you, Trevor, but when I first watched the Boondock Saints movie, I was about 17 or 18, which was several years after it had come out.
It's kind of the perfect age to watch that movie.
It's the only age to watch that movie.
Yeah, good point. Like, between the age of 13 and not even 18, like 17, I think, is... And you have to be a dude.
Yeah, you have to be a dude. I watched it, and I found it enjoyable at the time, and I'd seen it a few times afterwards. Mostly as kind of a drinking movie, just kind of hanging out, watching it. There's also a lot of smoking in the movie, which I was a smoker at the time, which is very nice. And I think I revisited it maybe a couple years ago, and it's not great, but it's still, I think, watchable. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the second movie, you will be soon. It is almost unwatchable. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and it's fascinatingly bad. Script, the acting, the messages in the movie are
muddled, to say the least.
Yeah.
And for me, I get where you're coming from, because a lot of my friends actually like look at me cockeyed sometimes when I tell them some of the movies I watch, because I don't know. Like, I don't know if I have a bit of a masochistic streak, but I subject myself to a lot of crap, knowingly, and it's because of this internet culture that we have, where film productions are much more transparent than they once were. Oftentimes, I'll find myself reading up on troubled productions or productions that were headed by incompetent people. I wonder
real
who
close
I might
to
be
home here,
alluding to.
Trevor.
Yeah, it's kind of the subject of the day. But I find myself reading about those stories, and it makes me want to actually see the product, so I can see, like, I can do the math and actually see how those problems manifested in the finished product, because film is one of those things that hundreds of human hands touch it. It's not the product of a single human will. There's a lot of problems that can occur during a film production that can get hammered out down the line. Even with somebody like Troy Duffy at the helm. But yeah, like movies like Batman versus Superman, before that came out, I was like, this sounds bad, but in like a fascinating way. And now I'm curious about Boondock Saints 2, because I still, as of recording, I haven't watched it yet, but you've always told me that it's bad in a way that just grips you, and it makes you just squint and try to figure out what the hell is going on here.
I mean, it's no St. Elmo's Fire. Don't get me wrong. That movie's special.
That's a masterpiece of fascinating bad cinema.
It really is a masterpiece.
There's layers to it.
I actually, the first time I saw Boondock Saints 2, I saw Boondock Saints 2 in the theater because there was literally nothing else to do, and I fell asleep I think my friend and I took. Actually, I remember now. We were in Hawaii, and this was after deployment, and I think I was underage at the time. I can't remember for sure. And we took beers to the movie theater, and a buddy of mine went and watched it, and we got back to the ship. I had fallen asleep during the movie. I'm like, I don't even know where I fell asleep. It was just boring. And I got back to the ship, and my friend Eric had been at the same movie. He's like, was that you snoring in the theater? He wasn't even with us. I'm like, yeah, that was me. He's like, dude, that movie, he didn't like it either. But he's like, dude, you can't fall asleep in a theater. Like, that's fucking rude.
Shame on you.
Yeah, apparently I was snoring in the theater. It was so boring. There was like 6 of us in there, I'm pretty sure.
Well, what's really funny, and this is skipping way ahead, but I just feel like I need to throw it out there right now, is after having watched this documentary called Overnight about Troy Duffy, at the conclusion of the film, the thing that came to mind was, how did Boondock Saints 2 get greenlit?
Right. So that's why I wanted. I'm really excited to go back and watch it, because when you watch Boondock Saints without seeing this documentary Overnight, you're like, it's an okay movie. I honestly, knowing how it went to try to make this thing and who they had to deal with to make this thing, I'm like, it's actually really impressive, I think. I want to go back and watch it and be like, I think it's pretty incredible how they got it greenlit.
Well, I mean, by the time we get to the end of Mr. Duffy's story in this documentary, all signs point to him having been blacklisted in Hollywood and just being no good at the movie business. And the only explanation that I can process at this moment is that DVD sales for Boondock Saints and VHS sales and television rights and stuff were astronomical, which I get. I could totally see. It's like the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. The movie, I don't know that it did well in theaters, but on DVD, tons of people bought it. Same with the Tom Jane Punisher movie. And Boondock Saints, based on some of the people I grew up with, probably did pretty well. But the one thing that jumps out at me, though, is, yeah, I could see a sequel being greenlit on DVD sales for sure. But not with Troy Duffy at the helm. Like, I don't know, maybe he had a interesting contract or something that required any potential for sequels or future productions to have him involved.
I think maybe he fan-funded the second movie. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what year was that? Like 2007?
Yeah, I was underage, so it was like 2008 or 2009 is when the second one came out. I want to say 2009 is when it came out. I'm trying to look for my phone. I can't find my phone.
I can't find my phone because I'm using it right now to call my friend and do a fucking podcast.
Yeah, that's exactly why I can't find my phone. I was going to look up what year it came out. You're going to have to look that up for me because I can't.
It came out in 2009.
Yeah, okay, because I was 20 at the
so
time.
that would be,
sense.
Yeah, that makes sense because I think didn't the first one come out in 99?
Yeah.
So we're going for an anniversary date.
Oh, and 1999 is an important date. So yeah, so this one, because this is a documentary, we're not really going to be going through this linear. We're not going to be going just straight through. I do want to comment on the documentary scope.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's an important thing to keep in mind when talking about this. So, just to kind of up at the top, this was directed by, I didn't get their last names, but I caught it when I was kind of glossing over the documentary again. Tony and Mark. Now, when Troy sold this script to Weinstein and Miramax, apparently, he grabbed his whole crew, and this was friends and his brother. While he's trying to get this movie greenlit, he is also trying to get his band, The Brood, signed. And he's kind of tackling two things at once. Did his brother, I don't know if you've seen Underworld. Priest from Blade 2. His brother looks like Priest from Blade 2.
He does very much so.
So much so, like it was ridiculous. I thought he looked just like him. So he has Tony and Mark, who are, I guess, just friends, but they're managing the band and they're supposed to be developing projects. That's what the task they've been assigned with, and they're filming a documentary while they're doing this. Now, I don't know what the motivation was behind the documentary. Maybe they were just doing for behind the scenes footage and it just turned into, wow, Troy's a piece of shit. And he just kept being a piece of shit, and now we actually have a movie, which is better than both of his movies, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's actually like a common starting point for documentaries, is you shoot gobs and gobs of footage, and then eventually a narrative starts to form from all that data. And if I remember right, like Tony was, I mean, he was a documentarian, and I think they like brought him on board to either manage the band or just document his Troy Duffy's rise to power in Hollywood. But their relationship changes as things roll along, and you can tell that the early footage, like the tone of it, started to change a couple years into production. But yeah, he's like a manager and documentarian.
Who did the editing for this movie?
It was edited by...
I'm sorry, the first Boondock Saints movie.
Oh, I'd have to look that up.
Okay, I'm kind of curious about that.
By Bill Durand.
What else has he done?
Let's consult the IMDb.
Because while the movie was directed by Troy Duffy, I don't think it was edited by anybody in his circle. I think he's the only one that had some kind of credit on the film.
Yeah, like I said, film production has tons of people working on it. So even if you have one rotten apple in there, there are other people that can step in to hammer things out.
I mean, he did manage to get some pretty decent shots. There was some on-location shots in Boston, I believe. I think
he is primarily a television editor.
Okay.
A lot of, tons of TV.
But he's a working
editor, for sure.
Okay.
He also worked on Boondock Saints 2. And not another teen movie.
Oh, okay. That's a fun one.
But yeah, mostly television.
That's how I
won of the Academy Awards.
Oh. I was going to say not another teen movie is how I know the plot to She's All That. I've never seen She's All That, but I know the movie because of that movie. So let's kind of you want to just talk about Troy himself?
Man, talk about like psychological profiling. The whole time you're watching this, it needs to be said, the format of this documentary is there is a narrative structure to it, but mostly it's told in vignettes, just kind of fly on the wall style, where they're having production meetings and stuff, and the camera's in the room, and using clever editing, it makes it look filmic, but really you can tell that we just had the camera running while a bunch of people were talking, and then cut around it and found different angles to make it look filmic. But the vast majority of the runtime of this movie is just Troy Duffy bullshitting. It's just him talking, and tons of shots of his friends just looking bored, and like they're just tuning him out.
Well, their body language, I wanted to get into that.
Yeah.
So he is an abrasive drunk. That's the best way to describe it. He is an abrasive, arrogant, delusional drunk in this movie. And his hubris was built rightfully so. I mean, apparently this movie was all the rage in Hollywood. Like, this script, I think maybe Weinstein was making it sound like a huge deal, so maybe, I don't know, maybe another studio might want to buy it. I don't really know, but he was building it up to be a really big deal. And this went straight to Duffy's head. I mean, boom, right there. Yeah. He says some of the, like, we deserve everything that's coming to us. Like, he's mental. It's crazy.
I mean, there's a lot of repetition of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, Kyle, and these are some references that I'm not sure if they resonate with you at all or as much as they do with me, but Catcher in the Rye.
Holden
Caulfield.
Yeah.
And Martin Eden. I think it was a Jack London novel. Do you know that one?
I'm familiar with Holden Caulfield. I am not familiar with the latter.
Okay. Both of these characters, these literary characters, came to mind while I was watching Troy Duffy, and I'm sure you probably actually grew up with like a dozen of Troy Duffys. I grew up with a few, probably not as much as you. It's an interesting psychology. See, Holden Caulfield there's that repetition of calling people phonies, you know? of not trusting anyone over 30 or whatever, and just being a surly teenager that thinks they know everything, and everybody's either out to get you or can't be trusted, and you got this massive chip on your shoulder that for the most part is probably unwarranted. And Martin Eden is a story about like he's not homeless, but he's like just a dirty sailor guy. That he's a simple man, he's physically strong, but he's really ugly. And he's a simple man, he's a simple blue collar man, and he like meets this gal that's like pretty and high class and does nothing but read and get drunk and talk with high society folks, and he becomes like obsessed with her, and he goes on this journey of self-improvement to the point, and he takes it so far to the point that he goes to these high society parties, still a dirty, ugly sailor man, but he's more educated than anyone else in the room, and he starts to become indignant and resent all those people that he aspired to be a part of, because he comes from a different world.
Yeah.
And so now he's like, oh, you guys are a bunch of phonies. Like, all you do is get drunk and like pretend you're, smart and high society types, but really you're just full of shit. And I really got that vibe from Troy Duffy, where it's like he needs that chip on his shoulder forever. Like even when he's successful, it leads to him, I don't know, being suspicious of the people around him, and you can't take that like low class mentality out of him. It's just always there.
Mm-hmm. I get what you mean.
And, yeah, I'm not doing a good job of articulating it, but it's really interesting to hear him just prattle on and on about how like, yeah, we deserve this, and like everybody else in this town, like they didn't earn what they did the way I did. It's like, sure they did.
Well, he has an interesting mindset when it comes to work. Now, he was sitting in that office for about 6 months. At one point, he's talking to Harvey Weinstein on the phone, and he's like, listen, I've been here for 6 months. I'm 6 months into my year contract, and we can just say that I'm unhappy with this company and then see if anybody else wants to buy me. And in those 6 months, I think he went to Boston, got drunk. He went to Mexico and got drunk. He may have scouted out some locations when he went to Boston, probably. But what else was he doing those first 6 months but sitting on his ass and getting drunk every night?
Yeah, so the editing of the documentary did a good job of cutting from him saying like, yeah, let's get to work, and then them getting drunk.
The quality of his script, which we'll get to, because we'll get to that. But his work ethic, he's just like, hey man, I got fucking plastered last night. I'm going to these meetings in my coveralls and nothing else. And he's like, I get my shit done. I got blasted last night. I got my shit done. I'm out here working. I'm like, yeah, Troy, but you're a director. It's not standing outside of a bar or serving people drinks or even physical labor. Like, you have to use your brain, and you have to be able to communicate with people, and you need to be able to work with people. This isn't just working. This is a different kind of work. And when you're getting blasted drunk every night, it's going to be very hard to do that.
Yeah, it was really interesting his attitude during those office scenes, because he had what Joe Pesci likes to call a telephone tough guy vibe to him.
Oh, very much.
Where he's like, he's the loudest, angriest dog in the yard if you're talking to him on the phone.
Yeah.
But face to face, I don't know that would be the case. But the tone of those scenes was really interesting because one portion of his time in the office is devoted to him talking to a anonymous producer on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who, I guess, didn't want to be exposed because their voice is even obscured in the documentary, and they aren't named. And when he's talking to this person, he's very aggressive. That's when he's saying, like, oh, I think I'm going to walk, blah, 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 blah. And when he talks to Harvey Weinstein, though, he's a child.
He's a child.
Yeah,
I noticed that.
He regresses and turns into just like a child who's basically pleading for like help.
Do you think it was John Peters that had his voice muted?
I don't think so, but that would have been amazing.
Ugh, because
John Peters, the most amazing. I hope they make a documentary just about him.
I feel like they will.
I hope so, because his scenes in the Death of Superman Lives That was just amazing. Like,
If you ever
I'm so glad I know who he is.
If you ever get the opportunity, Robert Evans documentary based off of his autobiography, the kid stays in the picture. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty entertaining.
I didn't know they made a documentary. I mean, you told me about the book.
It's I listened to the book, the audiobook, which he narrates, and then the documentary is more or less the same thing. It's like it's clips and stuff. It's not like it's a little different.
I just watched a documentary that was done in a similar fashion. It's called Generation Wealth. It's made by this lady by the name of Lauren Greenfield. That she's primarily a photographer, but in putting together the book, I guess they had a documentarian crew running around with her, and they got enough footage to make a cohesive narrative and made a pretty decent documentary out of it.
That fire island or fire festival.
Yeah.
Did you see that one?
I did.
I really enjoyed that.
I had Netflix for exactly 1 month, and I did.
You got that one in?
I got that one in because I was curious.
So he was given a $1 million advance, if I'm not mistaken, for this.
In 1997, his script was sold to Miramax, who... this is conveyed to us in the documentary via, I think it's like a local news broadcast, maybe in LA or something. And they do mention that Miramax purchased the script, and just recently, I guess they cleaned up at the Oscars or something, so they were the talk of the town. And you need to remember, too, that Miramax and, in fact, Harvey Weinstein, I believe, gave us both Tarantino and Kevin Smith. In the years prior to Mr. Duffy's sale.
Tarantino will definitely come up in the next podcast, the next
Absolutely.
episode. Yeah.
But it needs to be said that, like, at this point, at 1997, Harvey Weinstein had a very solid track record of picking angry young men. Well, Kevin Smith's not angry.
No, Kevin Smith's a sweetheart.
Just young upstarts, I guess.
Yeah.
Because Tarantino was... I mean, I think True Romance, he had sold the script by then, by the time Reservoir Dogs came out, or maybe
I believe
not.
so, yeah.
But yeah, Kevin Smith was totally unproven, and Tarantino was talked about, but I guess didn't have any clout just yet. So he had a reputation for picking well, like picking the right horse. So what came of this was a little surprising, probably for him.
Yeah, this was a bad apple.
Yeah. But yeah, $1 million. And then, did you happen to catch like his stipulations?
No, he wanted to direct it. I know that.
Yeah,
and he wanted his band to do the soundtrack. Correct?
Yes, his band by the name of The Brood.
The Brood.
I'm not sure if that's a reference to the Cronenberg film.
I mean,
it's also a wrestling stable.
Well, was it that good? Was it that good of a script when they would have somebody who's never been to film school, never done any kind of work on a film, just direct a movie?
I mean, Kevin Smith, Clerks.
Did he not go to film school?
I don't think so. I mean, that's my suspicion. If he did, then Kevin, maybe it's like maybe you should have.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
But
I mean, Kevin Smith and Quentin Tarantino aren't abrasive drunks, so that was Harvey's boo boo.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially if the urban legend is that the contract signing happened at the bar where he tends bar and occasionally bounces.
Yeah,
I guess when it's slow. Yeah, his contract stipulations were $300,000 for him personally for his script, a $15 million budget for the film. The Brood will do the score. He will approve casting and retain final cut of the film. That's quite a bit of power. And Harvey Weinstein will help him to purchase the bar where he works for him.
He must have had a lawyer sitting on this one.
They do make mention of something Morris Group that helped him negotiate it.
Okay.
I forget the exact name.
William Morris.
William Morris, yeah.
Yeah, William Morris.
So he did have representation, and I guess they did a pretty good job.
So, I mean, after he goes to Boston and I think his brother kind of mentions like, yeah, I hope Troy doesn't get into trouble out there, get into things he shouldn't. I'm like, he's already in the things he shouldn't be doing. He should not be drinking. But did you see this little cast part? The little party they had, like a little barbecue. They're drinking Bud Lights, and it's the classic can Bud Lights. I was shocked. I didn't realize how old this was when I was like,
it's really interesting watching this movie, and I'm kind of surprised this movie isn't like having a resurgence or something, because we're getting to that era of nostalgia now. We're watching every second of footage in this movie. I mean, it's mostly shot on Shitio from the most part,
yeah,
from what I can tell.
Shitio. Yes.
Shitio. But it looks like a family video that like your mom or dad shot on a VHS camera, and it's cozy, like, because I have enough years of memories built up where it's like, yeah, I remember when memories looked like this. And even the aspect ratio, I think it's 4:3, so it's like built for your old CRT television, not your flat panel. So it's very much a 90s and early 2000s story.
You can smoke inside the bar. You can smoke.
Yeah, yeah, people are smoking everywhere in this movie.
I fucking loved it. I'm like, oh my goodness, they're smoking everywhere.
Not just in the bar, everywhere.
Yeah.
And of course, when they go to France, fuck that, everywhere.
Everywhere.
At the party, Marky Mark and John Goodman are there. Like,
I think Marky Mark might be trolling him a little bit there.
Maybe.
I think he was just a little bit. I think he was probably saying some, in case Troy was to like just go off. Like he's saying like, yeah, no, it's a really interesting script. I mean, it's probably gonna be a real good movie. I'd like to work with him,
But I'd like to work with him. He's a brilliant guy. I think he's got a lot of great ideas.
Actually, if they would have replaced him with Norman Reedus, this would have been I think this would have been a bigger hit. This is the same year that Boogie Nights released, so I'm not even sure Boogie Nights was out at this point. I mean, it might have just been out in theaters.
Yeah, I mean, if Boogie Nights was in production at the time, he was trolling him. Working with Paul Thomas Anderson, I'm sure he had a different perception of how films are supposed to be put together.
I want to put a pin in Boogie Nights for now until the next episode. Okay. There's something specific from those two from Boogie Nights and the Boondock Saints, which I find interesting.
Okay.
But the point is that I think Troy was writing this script as he was drunk. Like he was just at home after the bar. Like he sat down and watched a movie and then fell asleep while watching it. And then he woke up the next day and was working on his script. Like, and this would happen and this would happen. But he didn't realize he was just taking things from that movie he had just watched. He's like, this is a great idea. I got to put this in. You know what? I'll just say it now. So there's a scene in Boogie Nights. I'm sure you know which one. It's the very end where Marky Mark, pulls out his prosthetic penis. Yeah. And it is
a prosthetic, ladies and gentlemen.
There is a scene in Boondock Saints, which I've told you about, where there's a side cock shot. And I'll tell you exactly where it's at. I'll give you the timestamp later. But I noticed
it's on my phone that I'm using to call you right now.
I noticed it the most recent time I watched him. Like, we just saw sidecock on that guy. I'm like, why? What does that have to do with anything? And I'm like, oh, he probably got, because to get that shot, you have to tell him like, okay, we're gonna be doing a close-up shot on this man's penis. Like he said it out loud. He's like, this is what's gonna happen. I think he got drunk and watched Boogie Nights shortly after meeting Marky Mark. Oh, wait, no. If he was writing... No. He didn't write it in the original script. That's what it is. He saw Boogie Nights after meeting Marky Mark.
He added it later.
He added it later.
Drunk. Yeah, he got drunk after watching Boogie Nights in the theater. He fell asleep on the couch and he woke up and he was like, oh, yeah, good, new scene.
We gotta get that side cock in there.
So yeah, this will really take his career to new heights. Sidecock shot that slipped in there at the last second.
Yeah, but like John Goodman is there. They mentioned a whole bunch of producers that worked for there was people that worked for William Morris, people that worked for Miramax. There's all kinds of people around there. Yeah, I was surprised to see John Goodman there. I'm like, how the fuck? Why are you sitting there talking to Mark? Go talk to John Goodman. He would be a much better conversation, but
Well, I'm sure they got to talking or something, but it just seemed like a production house meeting or something where it's like, let's get out all the stars. There's probably going to be a camera there.
His bandmates was something that I noticed. All of his friends, it's specifically the bandmates. They all just fucking cower. Like, they all are just, when he's speaking, they just kind of keep their heads down or just kind of look off in the distance. Like, they never give him any kind of pushback on anything.
Yeah.
Ever. I don't know, maybe they're just, like, oh, we need to know our place. Troy's the reason why we got here. Or if he's just mean, if he's got, like, he's manipulated them into being docile.
I think that's a big part of it, manipulation. Okay. A lot, man, like, just fascinating psychology, because there's a lot going on with this person that I would never want to know this person. I've met people that seem similar to him, but he strikes me as someone who's accustomed to being the smartest dumb guy in the room.
Oh yes. At all times. Aggressively dumb, stupid.
Aggressively dumb, but he's the smartest in a room full of dumb people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good way to put it. If you curate your surroundings, if you curate your social circle to a certain extent, you can always maintain that position. You just make friends with dumb people. And like even his brother, who at one point, when they're negotiating a record contract, one of the producers, it's the guy that used to be part of the Doobie Brothers. I can't remember his name. He does an interview with the documentary crew, like a one-on-one. And he says straight up that I don't know that Troy is brilliant. His brother Taylor is, as a musician. And that jumped out at me, because Taylor speaks maybe twice in the whole movie.
I don't know what he sounds like, yeah.
He's very quiet. And you can tell that Troy's always been the older brother, and because he has this personality of being overbearing and just speechifying and being just this braggadocious piece of shit all the time, I'm guessing it like muted him at some point, because early in the film, we get like a shot from an interior of a car where the film crew is riding around with Troy and his mom.
Yeah,
and he's rambling on and on about how he and Taylor are having a dispute of some sort, and Troy's like, he's an idiot. I'm right, he's wrong. And you can see this playing out over decades of, being brothers with each other, where you have one brother who's older and never shuts the fuck up, and then another brother who's a brilliant musician but has no voice outside of it. And you kind of see that with the other bandmates, where it's like, I kept picturing these people as like kids on a schoolyard, like at recess or something. And I remember this, like I remember being a part of this, where like you'd have the one kid who, it's not a gang, but like you get the crew together, and like he just like puts his hands together and says, okay, we're playing this today. Yep. And everybody just kind of falls in line, because he's the one kid in the group that has an ego and knows what he wants out of the situation. And
he's the alpha who fit himself with the betas. He chose, and he weaned off.
Yeah, he seemingly handpicked a bunch of people that will defer to him in most situations. And again, smartest dumb guy in the room. So anytime he does these, he has so many speeches in this movie.
He does.
Anytime he does that, like if you or I were in the room and he was talking to us like that, we'd be probably going like snickering in the back, because like the tone, his delivery is actually very good. He's probably, if you could tame his ego, I could see him being a decent actor, because he seems to do a lot of performing in his daily life.
He's an excellent guitar player. I was watching him, like the scenes with him. I'm like, oh, he's a really good guitar player. Like, his brother
talented. Taylor at one point does say the band needs you.
Yeah, I can see
and
that.
You get the sense that maybe he is a good component to the band when he's committed to it, which is almost never after the movie gets rolling. But his speechifying, it get the delivery's there, but the way he's what he's talking about, the concepts he's talking about, feel like a game of Dungeons and Dragons or something. Where it's not quite based in reality, where everything's heightened. Everything's like, yeah, we'll show them, and like, yeah, we're gonna win this war, and like, you slip up once, you're gonna die. And it's like a child kind of like pushing their imagination on top of reality. It's really weird.
Subconsciously, I think he was stepping on everybody else's heads to get ahead. Like, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna bring the band along and everything, like I'm gonna get them signed. But when it came down to trying to like give these guys money, he's like, no, you guys aren't getting any money, you haven't done anything. Because he's the one that negotiated it. I get the $300,000 for this, and he could have given some of that money to them. I mean, if he could have split it up, between the bandmates, like that would have been a year's wages. Like they could have lived off that. But I think instead he was just drinking it all away.
Well, that's where that street mentality comes from. From having spent a good chunk of your life as a bartender, as a bouncer, probably having Hollywood types come through your bar occasionally, and like wanting what they have, but at the same time not wanting to be them. It's a very fascinating thing that I see happen all the time. Like even among my friends, like especially my friends who maybe don't have the most money in the world, where it's you have this mentality of, yes, everybody wants to survive, everybody wants to succeed, but there's a certain extent that people have to cut it off, where it's like, oh, I want what they have, but I refuse to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that happening with Troy Duffy, where even though he was very successful, he still found ways to lash out at the people who probably helped get him there.
Yeah.
Because having a band, having a support system, even if they didn't put pen to paper, they're your friends, and they kept you sane from day to day. And a more humble person, a more stable person, would have recognized that. That's like, hey, like we can all succeed together, instead of lashing out and viewing these people as like hanger-ons and people trying to take things away from him. Because at one point, when around the time when they're negotiating, I think their second record contract, because the first one fell through.
Yeah.
He does give like a very candid statement direct to camera, like explicitly stating that he views the band as a bunch of freeloaders, basically.
Yeah, his bandmates, like, they are a bartender's worst nightmare. Like the scenes where they're like drinking in the bar, like these guys are huge. These like they all look like bouncers, and they're actually in that first Boondock Saints movie. They're the guys that get into the fight at the bar. But yeah, these guys are like falling over drunk, like throwing stuff in the bars. I'm like, God damn it, these guys are a nightmare. But I didn't really see them do anything. Like
they're very passive. They're very passive.
But I mean, like, as far as the movies, like, they weren't really practicing. Like, hey, you guys need to work out a demo. And like, well, Troy's busy. We can't really do that. And like, well, what were they doing? Did they have jobs? Were they actually working? I just couldn't figure out what they were doing. Ugh.
Yeah, it's not really clear if they're still working at the time, or if like they received a stipend or something to keep them going while they're supposed to be putting together their demo. But yeah, I mean, Troy Duffy doesn't appear to be entirely in the wrong, because it seems like a situation where maybe these guys weren't meant for this.
Yeah,
like they're probably a decent band. Like you said, he's a good guitarist, and apparently Taylor's an even better one. But maybe they were just meant to play small venues and not have a record contract because the motivation's not there.
Oh, they're a bar band. Like, I can tell you right now, their music's awful.
Which is, I mean, that's if that's what you're meant for, that's what you're meant for. Not everybody's meant to sell out arenas and stuff.
The Brood was not going to be selling out arenas. Like,
good point.
They were never going to be that caliber. They weren't even going to be Black Keys caliber. Like, they were just going to be. They were going to throw out an album. They might do some, bigger venues. They might do the Garden once.
They sold 690 copies.
Oh my God, it was so funny. And they go to that.
That's ouch.
Well, that was even interesting too, because when they go to where they actually go to record their album, they're in that house. I think the Rolling Stones recorded an album there. Who does he send down to the basement? He's like, you're going to sleep downstairs. He doesn't even say that.
Well, I separate everybody by their like
Hair?
aesthetics. Yeah, by their
By
hair.
their hair?
He was the guy that had I mean, you can't look him up right now, but
Curly long hair?
Raven from ECW, or
I know what
Diamond
you're talking
Dallas
about.
Page
I know
from
you're talking
ECW.
Kind of the curly hair.
Yeah, the curly
remember
like
him.
blonde highlights, and then there's like I forget his name. It was like Gordon something or other. He looks like Tom Savini with long hair.
Yeah.
He was the one that would get blackout drunk. Like they had that one candid shot of him literally like rolling on the floor, like he's doing a worm impression or something.
It was bad. They were,
and he was the one that looked like he was just not present most of the time.
I mean, these guys are getting blackout drunk every night, and I'm assuming if these guys even do have jobs, like they're not difficult. They're not difficult jobs.
At the end of the film, we do see everybody go back to their baseline, and we do see that most of them have blue collar jobs. Like I think Taylor's like doing handyman work or painting or something.
He's painting, yeah.
And one guy's working a banquet or something, and I think the Gordon guy is doing some sort of construction or something.
And then Troy's just standing outside of a bar smoking a cigarette as a bouncer.
Bouncer.
Where he belongs, by the way.
Not to throw things completely off track, but I can't remember exactly where this occurred in the documentary. I think it was early, but when Troy is in the casting process, they don't actually say who he's talking to on the phone, but he says, "I hate Keanu and Ethan Hawke."
Oh yeah, let's get to the casting. Oh, Jake Busey makes it.
You, dude.
He's hanging out with Jake Busey
up
one night. I'm like, oh, that sounds like
he
fun.
hung out with Jake Busey, Jerry O'Connell, Vincent D'Onofrio, Jeff Goldblum, and fucking Swayze.
Well, he's building this script up. He's like, everybody in Hollywood wants to work on this movie. Everybody should want to. I mean, what he thinks he has is not even close to what he actually has in a script. This is not Inception.
Well, he has such a strange, like, fragile ego because he vacillates back and forth between being like hyper confident and being like you just said, and then feeling that like everybody's out to get him, and that I don't know, he still believes in himself forever. Like he has a gigantic ego, but he goes from thinking he's hot shit to thinking that everybody's trying to take his hot shit or something.
I think the Keanu moment was where I'm like, Trevor has to watch this.
I was like, hey, whoa, let's not say things we can't take back. And he wanted Kenneth Branagh, apparently.
But Branagh was like, absolutely not, no.
I think he said he was told he was busy. I'm like, of course he's busy. He's a Shakespearean actor. Fuck you. He's also a director.
Did you think you were going to get Branagh? Really?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a miracle. An absolute miracle that he got Willem Dafoe.
That's the one that I was like, at the time when I watched it, I'd only seen Willem Dafoe in like Platoon. I don't think I'd see. Yeah, Spider-Man had. That first Spider-Man movie hadn't come out yet.
That was 2002.
It was getting there. I'd seen Willem Dafoe in Platoon, and I didn't really know at the time that he was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, no. My mom was always really up on him, so I was always aware of him, even if I didn't see his movies.
I had a couple of his movies. I watched his little GQ, like the little thing where they go over their favorite, like iconic roles or favorite roles and stuff like that. And he seems like a really nice guy. I could see him being kind of a set diva. I could see him maybe being a little bit of a dick about stuff. But he seems like a genuinely nice guy, probably somebody that's really great to work with. Yeah. And there's one scene, the scene where they're doing the shootout, and Agent Smecker, played by Willem Dafoe, is about to have his, I think probably one of the most famous scenes in the movie.
There was a firefight!
Yeah. He's going through, he's like, here's what's going to happen. You do this, and he's like, okay. And then he's just like, then what do I do after that? And he's like, after that, I say cut, and we're done. Like, he was genuinely asking for,
direction.
Direction. And Troy's just like, don't fucking worry about it. The scene's done after that. Don't worry about it. And, he's I didn't realize how short he was. I think Troy Duffy had quite a bit of height on him.
He's I think he is fairly short, but he's also wiry. Like, he's a jacked dude, man.
I didn't know he was from theater. He did mostly a lot of theater work.
Yeah, most actors come from theater, but him in particular, strong theatrical background.
I think he still is. I think he still does quite a bit of theater.
And that's why he's good. It's like stand-up comedy. You gotta get your hours in, you know?
Yeah, he says something at one point. I think Billy Connolly was the only one that was like all about Troy.
He was the only one that seemed to like him.
Yeah.
He talked him up quite a bit.
But I think that Troy was probably... Here's another thing I have about Troy is one thing that annoys me is when Americans claim Irish heritage, even though both of their parents were born in the U.S. with Irish last names. Irish last names. I think that he was probably, since it was a real Irishman, like a real Irish guy, he was probably just like, just in awe of him.
He was just in awe of him. Like,
just
that's how I saw it, because their interactions kind of had that vibe to it. And yeah, I like to tear some of my friends down every once in a while, because if you're not aware, I'm half Japanese and half Caucasian, and in my experience, a lot of times the friends of mine who really claim hard their Irish heritage is like, dude, I'm more Irish than you. It's like, my name's Hart.
You're not,
and usually I'm right. Yeah, in the documentary, I was kind of surprised, and actually I think it's for the best, being as we're going to be watching it next week. But the documentary actually doesn't have much footage or content during the production of Boondock Saints. Most of it is the couple of years prior to production and a couple of years after. I don't know if that was a rights issue, because I would imagine it was probably a closed set, and you probably couldn't bring a documentary crew there every day. And even if you could, maybe they wouldn't let them use the footage or something. But
most likely.
Yeah, the few scenes that we get, Billy Connolly's very chummy with Troy Duffy. And we don't get an actual interview with Willem Dafoe, but via Billy Connolly. Yeah, via Billy Connolly. So through a layer of separation, we're basically told that Willem is moody on the set and has tantrums and long silences, which gives me the impression that Mr. Dafoe was probably not very happy working on that film.
I can't
Turned out a
imagine
very
he would
good
be.
performance. He did turn out a performance, but yeah, I think being, as he's like an actor's actor, working with an inexperienced, probably not very professional Troy Duffy didn't sit well with him, from what I can tell. And yeah, that one scene we had where we see Troy Duffy trying to give him direction, or at least Willem Dafoe asking for direction. You can kind of see it on Willem Dafoe's face, where he's like, "That's your answer, okay."
Yep. Okay.
And it's interesting too, because he, from a visual standpoint, we can see him working out the scene.
Yeah.
Like he's giving like a pre.
He's there to work. He's working.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, he's a working actor, and he's like giving a pre-performance as they're, setting up the lights and blocking out the camera movement and stuff. So he's there to play, but I don't know that everyone else is.
I was gonna say something. I lost it.
Oh, no.
In his GQ interview, he had nothing but nice things to say about like every performance he was talking about. He's like, it was tremendous working with this person. Even when he had an opportunity to say something bad, he's like, I won't say anything about them. He seems like a really nice guy, and he would be fairly easy to work with. Wasn't this finished in 36 days? They filmed this in like just a little over a month, I think.
I'll go with you on that. I didn't actually catch the numbers, but
I think I caught that in the documentary.
It doesn't have the look or the feel of a movie that had an extended production time. So on time and on budget, man, that there is something to be said for that. So
yeah.
if Mr. Duffy did achieve that, that is an accomplishment.
That's that's what I'm kind of, after watching the documentary, I'm like, it's actually kind of an incredible movie.
It's like, given who made it, this is kind of a miracle.
It's pretty impressive.
It does need to be mentioned that, and I guess we forgot to go over this, prior to Boondock Saints officially going into production, there was like a kerfluffle between Troy Duffy and Harvey Weinstein.
Yes, I believe Meryl she was the co-president of production at Miramax at the time. Meryl Poster, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Be.
Yeah, apparently she had a problem with Troy, which I can't imagine why.
He does mention offhand that like she had a problem with his public image and his lifestyle, because I guess we only see a sample of it towards the end of the documentary, but I guess he not so good with the lady folks, and obviously. By the way, like every other word out of this guy's mouth is fuck.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not much better, but you know.
You are. No, I mean you can complete a sentence without say fucking. like when you're searching for your words, your default go-to phrase isn't fucking.
If he was gonna play somebody from the movie Tombstone, he'd be Ike, not Doc Holliday.
Okay, fair enough.
That's the best way to put his intelligence.
But yeah, what basically comes of this, and I do not remember the exact details, is the film loses pretty much all of its financial backing and distribution, so it doesn't have a home, and so over the course of trying to secure record contracts and secure distribution for the film and like financials and stuff, eventually they do obtain some form of sponsorship, and it comes at a cost of approximately like 50% of the expected budget that they had when they first sold the script. So by the time Boondock Saints gets made, it's made on a budget half that of what was initially offered to them.
How much did Willem Dafoe make for it? I mean, because he's the
actually.
only actual like actor who got paid, I would assume, like got paid well.
Yeah, I mean, Billy Connolly he's not a household name. Like,
no.
I mean, I'm sure he got paid well, but not that well.
Not that well. Yeah, well, I mean, it may have been better for his image if he wasn't getting shithouse drunk every single night.
Yeah.
Where apparently these guys that you're bumping shoulders with, Miramax producers, people that are like, yo, Meryl, you know that Duffy dude? Yeah, he was shithoused at that place again last night. Me and Rob went over there.
Well, let me derail things for a minute here, Kyle.
Go for it.
I'm curious, like, do you think Troy Duffy could exist today with the internet and social media?
That's okay. So no, I don't think he could.
I don't think so.
And I don't think his script. I don't think he
could. I don't think he could sell his script today.
No, I don't think he could sell his script either. I don't think that it was. I mean, we'll get into it next week, but I don't think that it was original enough that they would be like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. I don't think that he as a person would do, especially not now. They wouldn't even entertain that for a minute. He would definitely have a GoFundMe page for his movie.
Well, I mean, I don't know what he's up to today, but he strikes me as somebody that would like shack up with the Proud Boys and probably be punching teenagers at rallies and stuff.
That man had an MAGA hat for sure.
I'm suspecting that's the case, but yeah, I could totally see him showing up at colleges and punching students and stuff.
I hope. I'll contribute.
Or organizing those rallies or something.
I'll contribute to his GoFundMe page if he wants to get a Boondock Saints 3 going. I'll give him $10.
I mean, I'm kind of curious at this point. I mean, it is 2019. We are at another anniversary date, Kyle. It's got to happen this year.
I mean, I'm totally down. I don't think you could wrangle a single person from those movies except for maybe those 3 cops. I don't think you could get anybody else. You're not getting Norman Reedus. Definitely not getting Norman Reedus now that The Walking Dead. He doesn't have to do that shit. Sean Patrick Flannery, maybe.
He
might do it.
He probably got some house payments to make or something.
That Irish bartender's dead, most likely. Rocco, he's probably dead too. As Peter Fonda's in that second one. So I actually, real quick, I want to mention something. So Peter Fonda is in the second one, playing, I guess, one of the main bad villain. I don't really know. But I was listening to a podcast about the second Easy Rider, and it made me read up on the original Easy Rider, which I've never seen. I didn't know it was directed by Dennis Hopper, and it stars Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda. But apparently that movie did really well at the Cannes. Is that
Cannes?
The Cannes Film Festival, and I believe that's where Troy takes the film in the documentary.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. It's what you do if you have a hot indie film. Is you go there to pick up distribution. You're looking for people to purchase your film and spread it.
So I'm wondering if he threw in Peter Fonda, or like maybe I'm sure he's seen Easy Rider and beats off to Easy Rider easily.
Well,
I wonder if he tried to get
Think of the mentality of Easy Rider. It's that counterculture, us versus them mentality. Peter Fonda himself, unfortunately, seems to have devolved into a caricature of that concept. It's a shame because he's a pretty good actor. But let me put it to you this way, Kyle. The late 2000s were an interesting time for Mr. Fonda because he was doing such films as Wild Hogs, Ghost Rider, and apparently Boondock Saints 2. So I think Mr. Fonda was just in search of a paycheck.
Yeah. I mean, I think
and
maybe
those are just the ones that I rattled off from memory. It's like I didn't look it up.
I'm wondering if Duffy approached him because of Easy Rider, and
I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah.
It's that old world prestige where it's like, oh man, Peter Fonda, like I've seen his movies. I almost understood them.
He didn't.
I'm sure he didn't.
Oh man.
He probably met him and he was like, "Oh shit, I thought you got shot at the end." Like it's like you're alive? I thought you died, brah.
So what else is there? I mean, this documentary is rich in content.
It really is, but at the end of the day, it's mostly just an exploration of this person.
Yeah,
because like we've said multiple times at this point, the people around he surrounded himself with a bunch of silent stooges that just kind of jump whenever he says jump, and really it can't be stressed enough listening to him speechify to his group of friends, and they actually do a pretty good job of not showing him drinking all the time, because I think that like taints it a little bit. Because I assume that most of these speeches are delivered while he's a little buzzed.
Well, no, they have him in his office drinking. Like he smokes in there, but they have him drinking. I'm like, I think it's morning. I think that's hair of the dog.
Yeah, I think he's usually under the influence whenever he's doing this. But when he goes into like speech mode, it reminds me of being a little kid, because I caught myself doing that a couple times when I was a kid. You know, like you get your friends around and you're like telling a story or like getting everybody in on a game or something, and it really sounds like a rally the troops kind of moment, but it's delivered in such a way that it comes across as like juvenile and in this bizarre way where he's not quite in touch with reality.
No, he's
which is why I'm curious, like what was
the set
world
like?
Well, I'm sure the set was mostly just a bunch of crew members running around asking him questions and him saying, I don't know. And then they go do whatever they do.
Fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
That's something that I want to bring up too, is that he holds a meeting at one point where he's talking. He's like, everybody needs to pull their weight around here. I'm like, what are they doing? Like, that's what maybe just it was just negligence on the filmmaker for the documentary. Maybe they just didn't really think about that, but I have no idea why he's yelling at these guys. Thank you for bringing
that up, because I had the same situation. Because that whole scene, I was like, I don't even understand what he's talking about. Like, I don't know what the subject of this discussion is.
Yeah.
I think it was the record contract fell through, and he was blaming it on them or something. I never quite pieced it together, but yeah, he was condemning them and telling them that, like, yeah, if you don't pull your weight, you're fired.
Yeah,
you're fired as my friend.
As my friend. I mean, maybe like these guys are supposed to be project developers. So I mean, that's a loose term. I'm like, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to?
It needs to be said that the people who made this documentary are in quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
And one of the more heated exchanges in the film is him having a one of like the dozen sit-down meetings they all have in this movie, and he's basically telling the two people who produced and directed this documentary that they aren't going to be receiving any of the profits for the record contract signing.
Yeah.
Because he felt that they didn't do anything to earn it. And this Tony Montana guy, and shit, that's a hell of a name. I don't know what his deal is, but he's like this passive little like gremlin man. He, for somebody who claims to be a producer or a manager, he is so meek and so quiet. Like you even see him in meetings with like record producers and stuff. It's like, this guy's negotiating deals? Like he has no personality or weight or strength to him. He comes across as so passive, and the whole time he's being told that he's not gonna get paid for his hard work. He's just fucking sitting there in silence.
I think he fucked up. He didn't get anything in writing. I think that's might be why.
I think he's not good at his job.
No, I don't think he was qualified. I think he's just a friend of his that. He's
you're right, because the first time we meet him is at the bar, and they're all just shooting pool with Jake Busey.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really shocking to see that. Where the whole time I'm like, maybe Troy Duffy isn't wrong. Like maybe he does have some dead weight on him.
He might,
and it might be the people who made this fucking documentary.
Whether they were dead weight or not, he's a real piece of shit.
He's not a good person. And,
no, he's not.
And when you see him in like photo shoots in particular, there's a few of them in this documentary. His ego really starts to come out. You can tell he's just like taking it all in.
There's I don't know if you've ever watched the show, but 30 Rock. You know the Mayhem guy, the Allstate Mayhem, or
yeah.
I can't think of his name, but his name is Dennis Duffy. He claims Irish heritage. That's part of his character. He's like, yeah, I took the firefighting exam, and you failed it? He's like, yeah, it's totally biased against the Irish. But he at one point, he saves somebody from getting hit by a subway train, and they call him the subway hero. And he's about to go down for his photo shoot, and he's like, here, I have an outfit for you. He's like, nah, it's not going to work. I need you to get me a skull t-shirt, a leather jacket, and a pork pie hat. Go. That's what I want. And I could just hear Troy Duffy doing the same thing. I want the long coat, sunglasses. No, I will not shave my 5-day stubble. I will not. Yes, that's what I want.
Yeah, I'm again, I keep for some reason associating Troy Duffy with the Proud Boys or something. Like I'm picturing him wearing a vest and like a ironic 1800s style mustache and hat or something.
Yeah, I can see that.
Lots of Celtic tattoos too.
Why does he dress like the characters? Or I don't get it. Like, I'm assuming that's how he dressed before. He's like, I'm gonna have him dress like me
because that's what dumb people do when they write scripts. They project.
I mean,
it's wish fulfillment, you know. It's like he probably wishes he could, go around killing people without consequence. He probably wishes he was full blown Irish American instead of in name only.
I would say that he's probably he's racist, sexist, and maybe a little xenophobic there on top. There's a line in here that he says, "Look how Jewish they're being about it," in regards to record contract negotiations. I was like, Jesus, Trevor,
there's a camera running, sir.
Trevor, let's be honest. This was in 1997 and 98. If that's as far as he's gonna go, that's not that bad. Like
it's not that bad. You
could kind of get away with that now. And someone like, oh, that's a little risque. And then I was like, no, that was pretty standard. I'm not sure what else to touch on without like getting into the movie. I definitely have ideas of how I want to like contrast the other two movies. Sexuality is one I don't think has come up, and I would like to talk about with those two movies.
They only, like I said, it is mentioned that he like has a not very good relationship with the opposite sex. In the documentary, we only catch a glimpse of it. It's only like a couple shots here and there towards the very end. By the way, his one friend, CB, is he like not like maybe the biggest scumbag ever?
Which one is he? Is he the assistant or?
He's the tall guy with the glasses.
Oh God. gosh. Yeah, I know you're talking about
he
now.
starts to occupy a larger presence in the film towards the end.
You're right. Yep.
And it kind of feels like he got promoted as a friend or something.
Going up in the ranks.
Because as he becomes more and more estranged from the band, all of a sudden the CB guy starts to show up in more and more scenes and even accompanies him to con.
Sounds like Bohemian Rhapsody to me.
Oh, well, the quote-unquote antagonist in that film, the evil gay man with the mustache, is that a real person? I'm curious, because if that is a real person...
It is. I believe it is a real person.
His living relatives must be just like, what the fuck?
You're a piece of shit.
I know. I don't know if he's still alive, but the people who survive him must be just like, oh my god.
Well, I think actually there's a few things we can touch on about the movies that I can kind of gather from this documentary. He's definitely seen a Tarantino movie because he's dropped some N-bombs in that. At least the first one. I can't remember about the second one, but the first one definitely. And Agent Smecker is gay, and there's definitely some other F-bombs in there. A few times, a Freudian slip. It's said straight out right, and Paul Smecker is a gay character. He's working in a bar in West Hollywood, which I believe has a fairly large gay population. Like it's a fairly well-known gay community there. And I'm wondering if that kind of bled into him writing the script.
Yeah. No, I mean that's like one of the perks of working as a bartender is you get to meet characters. So if you do have a writer's talent and instincts, you can get material. Like you will meet interesting people that come through those places, and I'm sure like most writing of fiction comes from real life experience, at least if you're doing it right, or at least research. And I could totally see some of these characters being like a pastiche of previous encounters in his life or previous episodes, I guess.
He almost does a good job portraying a gay character in a movie in the 90s. Almost. There's definitely some problems with the character. But he's portraying a gay character in a in a position of power, and it's not really played for laughs. And he's the smartest one in the room.
What is it? He wants a bagel with his coffee?
Yeah, I want a bagel.
He might want a bagel with his coffee. That was the one line that jumped out at me.
He definitely has some mannerisms in there that might be overplayed at the request of the director. But I'm like, I think I'm gonna watch the movie after this, and just I'd take my notes and I'm kind of curious now. There is one really funny line in that movie. I'll give it to him. There's one really, really funny line, but I'll mention it next week.
Well, if I can, I'll send you a link to the actual screenplay, and maybe you can check to see if it was Defoe or if it was Duffy.
He might. That's a very good possibility. It could have been like, I'm not saying that.
I was about
Troy, I will not be saying that. You want me to do what? I'm something of an actor myself.
Oh yeah, trench coat mafia photo shoot, by the way.
Oh gosh, yeah.
When they finally released their album for the Brood,
which looks awful.
It looks awful, and they foolishly put the Boondock Saints on the label.
Gosh.
Like it's not a self-titled album or anything. They actually just plastered the Boondock Saints title on it in the hopes that the cross-promotional synergy will get them more than 690 record sales in 6 months. But yeah, the photo shoot they do, I think it was in 1999. So you had Columbine and The Matrix right around the time. Good timing, guys. Good timing with the trench coats and the Rottweilers or whatever.
Was Matrix 97 or 99?
I think it was 99.
Okay.
I think it was not shelved, but delayed, because I remember some of the earliest trailers for that, and it was probably early 98 or something. It didn't come out until 99 or something. But yeah, the trench coat mafia photo shoot, I was like, might want to sit on that for a minute, guys.
Yeah, let's let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah,
this is a little too soon.
But yeah, thank you for having me watch this documentary, by the way, because movies about making movies may be my favorite genre. Like,
Death of Superman Lives, the Dr. Moreau one. I think the Death of Superman Lives is the most heartbreaking one for me.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, because it did look like a promising film.
I think it would have been a lot of fun. It would be a cult classic, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, for sure. I need you to watch American Movie at some point. I saw a lot of parallels between this and that. American Movie is pretty heavy and depressing at times, but in terms of examining a person's psychology, like a wannabe filmmaker, it's very fascinating and very enlightening. It's about a guy, I think, from Wisconsin, that Mark Borchardt is his name. He's not a man of means. He comes from humble beginnings. He did go to some form of film school, and when you actually do see his product, he's competent. He's just a shithead that has too much involvement in his project. If you were to have him just do the lighting or just do the cinematography, he'd probably be very good. Like, not amazing, but competent. But because he has to do everything and he's surrounded again, smartest dumb guy. He surrounds himself with friends and family to serve as his production crew and stuff. And it hurts the production, especially since he has to do all the technicals as well. And it results in a lot of human drama that's really fascinating to watch. Strong recommend. Also, there's a movie called Kung Fu Elliot that to this day I don't know everything about it. I'll just say that much. It's something you need to see and then come to your own conclusion.
Gotcha.
But I sought it out a few years ago, and I was so glad that I did, because just the concept of it, a documentary about a wannabe movie star from Canada that fancies himself an expert martial artist when in actuality he's absolute garbage. Oh yeah, and he has a Chinese girlfriend, by the way.
That sounds great.
A Chinese girlfriend who he lives off of, like, financially. It's an amazing little film. I'm so glad that I watched it. In fact, I might end up buying the Blu-ray because it seems to have dropped off of Amazon Prime.
I wonder if maybe had Troy just sold the script and not been a part of the movie, it would have been better for him.
Absolutely.
I think that would have been the wise thing to do. Or
well, I mean, look what he did with his 6 months in an office.
Nothing. Did absolutely nothing.
Nothing. So if he had just sold the script and gone back to doing what he did, or at least, just burned all of his money,
yeah,
that would have been the end of it.
Yeah.
But instead he created obligations for himself.
Well, if he would have sold the script and it would have been a hit, they could have gotten some, since he's never directed a film, nor has he any experience with film in general, other than watching him when he's drunk. If they had done that, he might have been able to, like, hey, that first one did awesome. We're going to pay you even more money to write a sequel. I'm actually already working on it with that money, or, whatever. He could have set himself up in the long run to...
No, I mean, he had it all for just a couple seconds there before he decided to negotiate, play hardball, and ask for too much, because so much of working in Hollywood in particular is about who you know and your reputation. And he had both until he started working, because he had Harvey Weinstein's blessing, and then he had the studio's support, and then he lost both. And if you lose both, that kind of leaves you on the Patreon or the Indiegogo route, I guess. But yeah, I actually kind of would like to see a Boondock Saints 3 just to see it.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
I need him to make it too.
Oh, yes, I need him to make it. I really do think he could probably get Sean Patrick Flannery, but I can't imagine he would get Norman. I don't know. I don't think he could. I don't think he'd get Norman Reedus. He wouldn't.
I don't think so. He's too big now. He's like international famous, because you need to remember that, like, I think Walking Dead screens in Japan and around the world.
Yeah, I've heard that's the biggest deal show that's not that great. Like, apparently it's
that's
not
a good summary.
Kind of like Big Bang Theory, how those are like the highest paid TV actors, and that show sucks.
Yeah, I've only watched a couple episodes. But,
you're fine.
It just looks like every one of those 2.5 Men. I can't remember the name of the guy who produces all of them. He's the Dick Wolf of sitcoms.
Sitcoms.
Yeah. I'm serious. Like he cranks out Marvel good product. It's like it's adequate. It'll tide you over until next week. You won't hate yourself for watching it, but it won't knock your socks off.
Well, did you have anything else to comment on Troy Duffy?
No, but we got another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first entry in what I'd like to call an evening with Troy Duffy, if you will. And,
yes, this is an evening with Troy Duffy.
Yeah, welcome to an evening with Troy Duffy.
You should definitely watch this documentary. If you haven't seen the Boondock Saints movies, totally fine. You can watch it without seeing those movies, but you'll probably want to after you've seen.
I want to now.
I do too.
I've seen the first one a long time ago, but I barely remember it. So I'm kind of excited to take a look at it with this new insight into how it was made. So yeah, next week we'll be covering the Boondock Saints, and then I suppose the following week we'll be covering Boondock Saints 2, and that will be the entirety of Troy Duffy's filmography. So that being said, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.